It's 4:51. Why am I awake? So this isn't really an official playlist video or a songs I'm listening to video. It's more of a me playing catch up and a poor attempt at me collecting songs last minute because I'm up in the middle of the night for absolutely no damn reason. A hectic couple weeks for me recently, so I haven't been able to catch up on too many albums, but the records that I have listened to over the past few weeks, I do have some thoughts about, and while I haven't been able to record them in their own specific video like I would have liked to, I do still have thoughts about them, and I thought this would be a better format for me to release those thoughts. Y'all remember during the Double XL freshman freestyle this year, where I was talking about Baby Keem having a terrible stage presence and having a horrible performance? Dude came through with a couple of singles that really gave me some energy. Far more than he was giving me than those school shooter vibes that he was showcasing on his freestyle. I felt like I was getting dissed. The opening line is, "You a critic boy, shut the fuck up." And I was so proud. Wait, he just casually threw aside naysayers. I thought that was great. While I'm not a huge fan of his voice on this track, and the vocal inflection is reminiscent Kendrick, I still really enjoy this track. There's just such a carefree attitude and lack of attention to detail on this track that makes it feel so natural. It comes off effortless, you know? And that's what I like about it. It has a certain style, a certain personality that screams, I don't really give a fuck what you think. It's simple, nothing much to it, but it gets its point across and then it gets out. There are a couple of albums that came out too that I'm really not a big fan of. Y'all are gonna hear my thoughts about those in a couple of minutes. But the ones that y'all know that I did really enjoy was the 21 Savage and Metro Boomin project. Many Men is probably my favorite track on the album still. Love the 50 Cent reference. Love Morgan Freeman's little side notes to what jealousy can do and how it can breed hatred near the end portion of the track. Love how it kind of references, at least to me, from what I hear, from what I remember, kind of John Carpenter aesthetics, kind of Halloween aesthetics, really spooky, really paranoid, dark and gritty, but still kind of melodic and just kind of enticing. Listening to this song over and over again, I just see how much 21 dominates the energy, dominates overall presence for this track. You know, it took me a couple of listens to realize I'm listening to 21 Savage for like 3 minutes almost, no break. And I have no issue, I have no problem. I love this man right now. There are other tracks that I love even more, like Brand New Draco. Y'all already know how much I love R.I.P. Love. Said and Done hits me in a totally different way now, and how it's sequenced throughout the album just makes it a perfect closer. I just really think they stepped up on this project. I do. I already talked about how much I liked it in certain aspects of it in the first initial thoughts video I had about it a couple weeks ago or a couple days ago. My time management skills are terrible right now. Again, like I said, it's 3:20 in the morning. Westside Gunn released another album that I feel like is just kind of half-baked, you know what I mean? His new record, something Let the Sun Shine. Wasn't a big fan of Fly God 2. It just didn't do anything for me. A lot of the tracks just seemed lazily thrown together. Nothing was sequenced the way it was sequenced on Pray for Paris. And while it's arguable, you could say SB is his best project. You could say HWH4 or HWH7, or some people have all these different albums that are probably their favorite from Westside Gunn. This is another one that just falls into one of my least favorite from him. Westside Gunn already isn't the most entertaining rapper out of Griselda. I would probably say he's the least entertaining out of the group. And I think as a curator, as far as developing sounds and figuring out where to place certain people on cuts, I think that's his bag. I think he will work far better as a producer, far better as a curator than an artist, and I think the albums that he's been coming out with this year outside of Pray for Paris have kind of just proven that. There are still some decent songs on here though. I especially love the track The Butcher and the Blade with Conway and Benny. I thought their energy on that track was crazy. The piano kind of reminds me of George Bondo from Pray for Paris, which again just speaks to how I feel some of the ideas seem a little bit recycled. As far as a Griselda cut, I actually enjoy everybody from start to finish on that track. Boldy James makes an appearance on this album, so does people like Busta Rhymes, so there are elements of the album that I think can be enjoyed, but just as a project itself, I don't think it holds its own weight. Bryson Tiller finally came out with a new album. Little did people know it would just be a deluxe to Trap Soul. after the Trap Soul Deluxe had just came out. And look, there's another album coming out before the year is out from Bryson Tiller, from what he says. Hopefully it's in a different direction. Hopefully it's a little bit more creative. But there were still some good songs on this album. Some nice songs you can play in the background. Some stuff to get sensual. Some stuff to get you in a laid back, chill mood. Things Change and the interlude cut on this album are probably my favorite, along with tracks like Sorrow and the closing cut that has a beautiful sample playing throughout. It's a decent listen. I don't think it's my favorite work from Bryson Tiller or anything like that, but it's a decent listen with some decent cuts, some nice songs, a few high moments. You know, don't expect too much listening to it, but I think it's okay. Action Bronson has had one of the best character arcs I've had the pleasure of watching throughout his career. Obviously, he's a real person. I would never try to minimize his experiences to, essentially something that could just be used for my entertainment, but that's what we do all the time without necessarily saying it. This dude's weight loss journey has been incredibly inspiring. I think how well this dude has evolved over the past few years. He's always been a little bit retro. His sound has always been a little bit more underground to me. He's never really catered to or tried to be a part of the mainstream or tried to be that one white rapper that had to rap super fast. He's always had some form of style and swagger and some sort of content that made listening to his music just really chill and enjoyable, and I think he continues that with this new record. Gave me exactly what I expected. It's a project with The Alchemist, and if you listen to The Alchemist, you know pretty much how these beats are gonna sound. But I'm interested to see Action Bronson travel further and further down the underground lane and see what else he could cook up. I think that background fits his style so well, and I'm really excited for what's next. Giveon dropped an EP, and I'm not gonna spoil what the content was on this EP at all. You should listen to it if you haven't already. But one thing vocally that I have to give Giveon credit for is just the range of his voice, how far it travels, and the strength and intensity of it. I think just that ability in itself makes it a more interesting listen. That's what separates talented singers from people that know how to sing. This dude's voice is just a talent, okay? Even if he didn't know how to use it, it would be a talent. Not everyone's born with that kind of range. Not everyone's born with that kind of depth, and I'm just talking vocally here. I do feel like there are a few missteps with a few of the tracks on this EP, how bare some of the instrumentals can be, though I do understand the more minimalistic vibe to it as you're trying to set the tone to be a little bit more sensual, to be a little bit more mellow. His voice in just the range of it, to me, just proves that some things cannot be taught. Brent Faiyaz dropped a track called Dead Man Walking, and yeah, I'm waiting on an album, man. I am. Brent Faiyaz, people love calling him toxic. I don't really think being honest is toxic, man. I don't really think Brent Faiyaz does too much that's toxic. I heard an unreleased snippet from him not long ago where he said, if you're not with me, basically, I want you crying. I don't really think that's toxic. I just think, yeah, you might just have a bitter moment. I mean, everybody has those. I don't really think that's toxic. I just think that's human. And I think people love calling things toxic that are well within the human nature. They just don't like to associate themselves with it, even though they do the exact same thing on a regular basis. I love these scenes that I could picture when Brent Faiyaz is singing, man. He puts me in one of those deep in love relationships, Brent Faiyaz doesn't make music for people that just randomly get into casual flings. He makes music for people that have had that person in their contacts for 5 years, and y'all keep going back and forth with each other, and then you leave each other alone for stretches of time, and then you still manage to find your way back to one another. That's who Brent Faiyaz makes music for. Wait, so is that toxic? Cashier Fresh dropped a track titled How I Feel. I like it. Cashier Fresh has been dropping music, I don't know for how long. I'm pretty sure it's been about 5 years or so. His age, having a personality that isn't derivative of what's already in the market right now is something that I think should be praised. While I do think this track is a little long, it does pretty much showcase everything of what I feel he has to offer right now as a rapper. I feel like this is one of his better cuts. And his talent as an MC, at least from what I've heard so far, can kind of be summed up in this track. The flows are tight. That's all I really care about. The flows are tight. Doe and Damani off of Conway the Machine's album, From King to a God. The album's still heavy rotation. Still one of my albums of the year. This is great. This is great music, man. Well, Conway really did his thing. He really showed out for Griselda. But Benny the Butcher said he dropping a track tomorrow, so I don't really know who's gonna have the best album that came from Griselda this year. Slowthai gets very chill, very, very mellow. Allows James Blake to kind of take the wheel on this track. It's a little awkward at first because Slowthai is kind of known for that heavy energy in the beginning of his songs, a lot of in-your-face material. Some of what he says could even be interpreted as disingenuous or maybe sarcastic. It may make it harder for you to connect with what he's saying because it sounds like an idea might be preaching to you at some moments as opposed to a person. But here, he just seems so much more chill, so much more laid back, so much more willing to allow the instrumental to kind of create the vibe, and he just kind of blends into it as opposed to him trying to take over. And I think it made for a much more smooth listen and definitely a direction that I didn't see Slowthai going in before. But this track definitely showcases him in a different light, and I want to see him explore that. YG, I don't know what's going on with bro, because his albums have not been hitting me the same way they used to hit me. This new record, I don't feel like it does anything. I feel like most of it's filler. Most of it is unnecessary. And I don't generally use that term when describing music because I think every form of expression is a necessary form of expression. But some of these tracks just... why? There is like a rendition or a sample, I guess, that YG tries to use on a song from Tupac, and he does it with Chris Brown and Tyga. It might be one of the worst songs I've heard this year out of the West Coast in history. Why did you feel the need to touch that song? It was fine the way it was. Tracks that I did actually like off this album were tracks that were released weeks prior to its actual showcase. And those were tracks like Out on Bail. Those were tracks like Swag. But then when you dive into the album, there's nothing to chew on. It's a short listen, which you would think would be saved for the best of the best tracks, but no, it's just what you would expect from filler version YG, and I felt that way on his previous projects like Stay Dangerous. Nothing he's dropped since 2016 I feel like has really stood next to some of his best work, like Still Brazy or My Crazy Life. That's still his best work to me. Tracks on here that I hope people find bangers out of, but as an album, does it sit well by itself? No. Y'all have been going crazy asking my thoughts about this Joji album. Look, I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't like it. And I love Joji. I love the potential that Joji has. Some tracks just do not. And again, this is another one of those cases. Same thing with the YG album. This is another one of those cases where the music prior to the album's release get you into a mode where you think each ride or each song is going to be its own ride. Each song is going to be its own adventure. He could really create an adventure out of all of these songs, but his personality, I just think, gets lost in the aesthetic of the album. The aesthetic is very lo-fi, low-key, drowning in sad boy hours, trying to be melodramatic in a bit of a way, but not necessarily telling you why. There aren't really any themes connecting the story. It's very consistent, but kind of samey. There's not one track on here I feel like that describes itself as that much different than any other, outside of the singles that were already released, the best of which I feel was released months ago with Run. Though I feel like his voice peers through the production a lot more than it used to, which used to be one of my bigger complaints for Joji and the whole lo-fi aesthetic that he was going with. Though his voice shows up more, I feel like his personality doesn't. And that shows up in the lack of songwriting, the lack of ideas here, and the lack of overall presence I feel like he ends up having. Because even though his voice stands out now, I feel like it still blurs into the same background because there's no content. He's focused all his efforts into aesthetic and none into personality. And it makes the album just kind of go like a blur for me. Also, I really enjoyed that Spillage Village album. So y'all check that out. I don't really have much to say about it other than it was good. I enjoyed it. It was a smooth listen. It was a smooth ride. I think most of the tracks are quality, but I do think, they do better apart than they do together. But this is something that I'll still take as probably like an honorable mention. But it's not great. It's nothing crazy. The theme is a little broken. But hey, it's good music, even if I don't always love all the verses. That's how I feel about it. It's late. I'll see y'all next time. I caught up. Peace.